In the soft glow of an early morning, Clara Vega, a young woman with little more than her determination and modest dreams, found herself using the sleek surface of a car window as an impromptu mirror. With careful precision, she adjusted the delicate undergarments hidden beneath her blouse, all the while knowing that every second mattered. At that exact moment, fate intervened when a refined gentleman ensconced in a glossy black vehicle with tinted windows caught sight of her. His eyes sparkled with an immediate admiration, as though destiny had orchestrated their encounter to spark a love at first glance. Clara had been sprinting along the busy streets, her heart pounding as fiercely as a finely tuned engine. Clutched in her trembling hand was a crumpled resume, the very document that represented her hopes of a breakthrough. The interview she was racing to attend was not merely an appointment. It was a lifeline. With each determined step, she murmured to herself about the consequences of failure, half joking that she might even have to sell her kidneys, a dark humor born of financial desperation and overwhelming urgency. Barely a few steps away from the towering glass structure that housed the company, she paused to catch her breath. All that was required now was a deep, steadying breath and an appearance that would suggest her life was, at least on the surface, under control. And then, as if scripted by the cosmos, her eyes fell upon a stunning black car parked directly in front of the building. Its window, tinted yet flawlessly reflective, offered her a chance to perfect her look. A first-class mirror, she mused quietly, halting before the passenger window to examine herself. With a fluidity reminiscent of an Olympic gymnast, Clara adjusted her bra with swift, precise movements. In the midst of this hasty ritual, she retrieved her lipstick and applied it with unwavering concentration, hoping to present herself as composed as possible. When she finally allowed a small smile of satisfaction, she froze. A vibrant, unmistakable piece of lettuce was lodged between her teeth, a detail so absurd it could only belong to a cruel twist of fate. Seriously? She groaned inwardly, her mind reeling with disbelief. In a frantic bid to correct the mishap, she attempted to dislodge the intrusive leaf with her finger, her face contorting into expressions that could have easily graced the screen of a comedy. At that critical moment, the gentle hum of a window rolling down disrupted her frantic efforts. Clara's eyes widened as she turned toward the source of the sound, her hand still half hidden in her mouth. Inside the car, a man of remarkable appearance observed her with a gaze that was both amused and tender. His hair was immaculately styled, his tailored suit accentuated a refined elegance, and his expression was one of playful curiosity. "Need assistance with that, or would you prefer a professional mirror?" he inquired, in a calm, teasing tone that hinted at both amusement and genuine care. For a fleeting moment, Clara's instincts screamed to flee, yet her feet remained rooted to the spot by a mixture of shock and embarrassment. Summoning her resolve, she quickly wiped her fingers on her trousers and raised her chin in defiant composure. "Let me know if you happen to locate my dignity," she retorted, her voice wavering between sarcasm and indignation. "I suspect it fell somewhere amidst this spectacle of public humiliation." Her words, though laced with humor, betrayed the deep insecurity she felt. The man offered a soft chuckle, his eyes glimmering with a blend of mischief and sincerity, which eased the sting of her embarrassment. "It appears that before I arrived, the window already had an audience," she quipped, acknowledging the bizarre comedy of her situation. Before their repartee could deepen, the relentless march of time reclaimed Clara's attention. A sudden realization hit her. She was dangerously late for the interview. "I'm terribly late," she cried out, and without waiting for a response, she dashed toward the imposing entrance of the building. The gentleman, now identified in her mind as a mysterious stranger, offered a respectful salute as if to say, "You've got this, Miss Emergency." With that brief gesture, he remained in his seat, his eyes following her retreat with an encouraging glint. Inside the grand lobby, Clara paused to gather herself. A warm, reassuring receptionist welcomed her and directed her toward the inner sanctum of the company. As she ascended the polished marble staircase to the interview room, Clara's thoughts raced, each misadventure of the morning interweaving into a tapestry of awkward fate and unexpected humor. The interview room, a modern chamber of glass and light, set the stage for what was to come, its pristine environment belying the chaos of moments before. At the precise moment the door swung open, Clara turned, prepared to face her destiny. In strode Alexander Stone, the dignified head of the company, whose confident presence filled the room like a master on a runway. His impeccable suit, coupled with an effortlessly charming smile, lent him an air of authority and subtle humor. Startled by his sudden arrival, Clara's breath caught in her throat. "You must be the chief executive officer," she managed to stammer, her voice a mixture of awe and mortification. "And I suppose you're the woman with the lipstick mishap and a garnish of salad?" Her cheeks flushed as she attempted to hide her embarrassment behind a nervous laugh. Alexander's gentle response, "Relax, I'm not one to hold judgments too tightly," softened the tension in the room. He invited her to sit, adding with a playful note, "Please, make yourself comfortable. Just give me a warning next time if you need another adjustment, so I'm not caught off guard." Though still dazed by the surreal nature of her morning, Clara settled into the chair, wondering if it was all some bizarre dream. The conversation soon shifted to matters of ambition and purpose, and Clara found herself candidly revealing the challenges of her humble origins and the relentless work ethic that propelled her forward. "I come from a place where few would dare to dream," she admitted earnestly, "and every setback has only fueled my determination to succeed. I refuse to give up, and if granted a chance, I will make every opportunity count." Alexander listened intently, his earlier amusement replaced by genuine admiration for her unvarnished honesty. "Your authenticity is rare and refreshing," he observed quietly. "In a world of rehearsed responses, your truthfulness stands out." His sincere words resonated deeply with Clara, transforming the interview from a formal clariluation into a celebration of resilience and individuality. After a thoughtful pause, Alexander closed her resume with deliberate care and stated, "Miss Vega, you have already passed the most challenging part of this interview, being yourself. You're hired." The simplicity of his declaration filled Clara with a surge of disbelief and gratitude. As she left the room with a tentative smile and a heart buoyed by hope, the memory of the morning's misadventures lingered like a surreal echo, a reminder of how fate can intertwine humor and hardship to pave the way for new beginnings. Later that day, as Clara prepared for her first day at Novatech Innovations, she recalled the peculiar chain of events that had marked her interview. Rising before dawn in her modest rented room, she meticulously readied herself, pinning back her hair with a crooked clip, carefully smoothing out creases from her well-worn dress pants, and choosing the only white shirt free of any unsightly stains. On her journey through the city, life continued to test her resilience, a couple of inadvertent bumps on the subway and a spilt cup of coffee on her blouse. Yet each setback was met with a determined smile and a silent vow to persevere. Upon arriving at Novatech Innovations, Clara was greeted by a courteous assistant, who escorted her to the department where she would begin as an administrative assistant. The office exuded modern elegance, with its glass partitions and understated sophistication, and her new identification badge shone proudly around her neck. Soon, a friendly colleague named Fiona approached her with a warm introduction, welcoming her to what she playfully referred to as the jungle of corporate life. Their brief exchange, laced with humor and genuine camaraderie, infused Clara with a renewed sense of optimism for the future that lay ahead. Clara Vega couldn't help but marvel at the absurdity of her new life. The day had barely begun when whispers of her bizarre introduction had already spread throughout pinnacle tech industries like wildfire. It all started when a reflective glass facade captured her less than graceful attempt at applying lipstick and adjusting her undergarments, a mishap witnessed by an onlooker on the third floor. Rumor had it that someone had seen every detail: the lipstick, the bra adjustment, and yes, even that notorious garnish that had made its uninvited appearance. By mid-morning, half the office was abuzz with the tale, and Clara had quickly become a part of the company's folklore. "Seriously?" she muttered under her breath as she absorbed the news. It wasn't the kind of notoriety anyone desired on their very first day. Yet even amidst her exasperation, a spark of humor began to twinkle in her eyes. Fiona, her ever-supportive colleague with an irreverent wit, gave her an encouraging wink and declared, "You're a charming character, really. Let's get you to your desk." Fiona led Clara to her modest workstation, a cramped nook wedged between a lifelike plastic fern and a perpetually noisy printer. Although it wasn't located on the CEO floor, this small corner was her own little domain, a place where she could reclaim her dignity bit by bit. Before long, Alexander Stone, the dashing yet formidable CEO, strode past the corridor. His presence was magnetic. He wore an impeccable black blazer and carried his phone as if every call were of utmost importance. At the mere glimpse of Clara, he couldn't resist a playful remark that rippled through the hallway. "Watch out for the coffee, and the lettuce too." His words, light-hearted yet piercing in their humor, caused Clara's eyes to widen in shock. She choked on the sip of water she was drinking while Fiona nearly spluttered her tea. It wasn't long before a cheeky sticky note, emblazoned with the nickname Miss Lettuce alongside a crudely drawn bra, was taped to her desk. "Great," Clara sighed as she sank into her chair, feeling the weight of the unintended moniker. "I knew I shouldn't have gotten out of bed today." Fiona's laughter filled the air as she reassured her. "Relax, everyone earns a nickname eventually. You just made yours memorable." The rest of the morning slipped by in a blur of online training sessions and an avalanche of technical data that left Clara's mind reeling. Each new spreadsheet seemed to compound her stress, but she soldiered on, determined to prove her worth, despite the swirling chaos. When the clock finally signaled the end of the workday, Clara's attention was snagged by a calendar notification that demanded immediate action. An investor presentation was scheduled in Auditorium B, and she was to accompany none other than Alexander himself. Shock and apprehension churned in her stomach. "Me? On stage? On my first day?" she wondered aloud, half terrified that Alexander's intention might be to witness her public stumble, or worse, to have her become the subject of yet another viral mishap on LinkedIn. Gathering her courage, Clara headed toward the auditorium. There, waiting at the entrance, Alexander greeted her with an easy smile. "Clara, punctuality suits you? Something rare around here," he teased warmly. "So, you really want me to have you on stage with me?" His tone hinted at an unexpected fondness for surprises. "I usually just sit back and enjoy cookies from the back of the room," he continued, "but today, you're trading those cookies for center stage. Just follow along, observe, and if you feel like speaking, by all means, join in." Clara took a deep, steadying breath. "Okay, but if I pass out, I'm expecting hazard pay," she quipped, trying to mask her nervous excitement. Inside the auditorium, an array of executives and investors, all dressed to the nines like they'd stepped out of a high-end fashion spread, filled every seat. Alexander's presentation on the company's ambitious project flowed confidently, until an unexpected question about engaging a younger demographic caused a brief, awkward pause. All eyes shifted to Clara as Alexander turned to her and inquired, "Any thoughts?" Her heart pounded so hard it felt as if it would burst from her chest. With no time to retreat, Clara managed a quivering smile and began, "Perhaps integrating humor and relatable real-life scenarios into our marketing strategy would demonstrate that technology isn't solely the domain of experts. It's accessible to everyone, even those who sometimes feel like accidental hackers, just by operating a microwave." A ripple of amusement passed through the crowd. A few chuckles here, nods there, and one investor even remarked, "Finally, someone who speaks our language." Alexander's subtle smile told Clara he had anticipated her response. After the presentation, as the room slowly emptied, Alexander approached her once more. "You know, you really stole the show today," he said, his tone gentle yet sincere. "I hope it wasn't just because of my questionable shoe choice." Clara laughed, momentarily forgetting her earlier embarrassments. "It might be both, but mostly because I managed to convey something truly understandable." Alexander's eyes softened for a heartbeat, and he added, That's a rare gift." As the day progressed, Clara's trials continued into her second day at Novatech Innovations, her new workplace, where she was determined to overcome the follies of her first day. Waking with a groggy haze, she couldn't help but feel as though her mind were still asleep, even though her body had switched to emergency mode. A dramatic sigh escaped her lips as she checked her phone. Another workday had begun, and miraculously, she still had her job. "Is this a miracle or a clerical error?" she mused while hastily brushing her teeth, donning her best pair of dress pants, the least wrinkled pair she owned, and a beige blouse with charmingly uneven buttons that hinted at personality. Determined to avoid any further culinary disasters, especially those involving rogue lettuce, she applied a more understated shade of lipstick, praying for a smooth day. Upon arriving at Novatech Innovations, the receptionist recognized her instantly, greeting her with a warm smile and a quick nod. Clara awkwardly waved back and made her way to her department, where Fiona was already buried in a spreadsheet, munching on a protein bar as if it were the only sustenance available. "Survived the initiation, Miss Lettuce?" Fiona teased without even looking up from her work. Clara managed a tight-lipped smile, replying, "Barely, but I'm alive." Fiona then reminded her of an impending meeting, a critical alignment session with investors and strategic partners that left Clara's heart pounding with both fear and anticipation. Rumor had it that Alexander appreciated her authentic, down-to-earth perspective during the previous presentation and wanted to see if she could bring that same charm to a more formal setting. With a racing mind and a stomach in knots, Clara scurried to the office kitchen for a much-needed cup of coffee. A quick glance at her email confirmed the meeting details. An executive session on the 25th floor, requiring nothing less than unwavering confidence and a sharp dress code. Desperate to salvage what remained of her composure, she visited the bathroom for a final touch-up, fixing her hair, checking her teeth, thankfully free of any unwelcome vegetable remnants, and taking a deep, steadying breath. As she exited, her heels clicked with determination on the polished floor, until suddenly a sharp snap resounded in the corridor. Glancing down, Clara's heart sank. Her right heel had broken off completely, as if gnawed by some unseen beast. "Not now," she whispered, panic rising as she searched for assistance in the empty hallway. Forced to hobble back to the bathroom, Clara scavenged through her emergency supplies until she found a hair tie, a coin, and some duct tape. With a mixture of desperation and resolve, she rigged a makeshift repair to her ruined heel. The result was far from elegant, more reminiscent of a child's crayon-wrapped creation than a professional repair, but it would have to do. 3 minutes later, albeit slightly off balance, she managed to catch the El Claritor to the 25th floor. Just as the El Claritor doors began to close, a hand shot in to stop them. It was Alexander, dressed immaculately in a dark gray suit with a crisp white shirt, his presence carrying an air of calm assurance and a hint of sarcasm. "Miss Cruz," he greeted coolly, "always on time, even with your dramatic flair." Clara forced a smile, retorting, "Style is everything, Mr. Stone." His eyes caught sight of her duct-taped shoe, and with a raised eyebrow he remarked, "Is that duct tape? Now that's creativity and survival. Two very important skills around here. You're definitely not from HR, and I dare say not even from planet Earth." The El Claritor ride-up was filled with a light, almost playful tension. Upon reaching the conference room, an impressive space with floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing a panoramic cityscape, an elegant oval table, and neatly arranged refreshments, Alexander turned to Clara with a final piece of advice. Try not to slip on stage. Investors aren't exactly fans of acrobatics, unless performed in slow motion. As they settled into their seats, Clara discreetly adjusted her makeshift repair, hoping no one noticed the quirky detail. The meeting commenced with an intricate discussion of data, growth projections, and innovation strategies, a lexicon that often left Clara feeling as though she were deciphering a foreign language. Yet, when it was time to present on a new project aimed at enhancing user experience, Alexander unexpectedly turned to her. "Clara, would you like to share your thoughts on audience perception?" he inquired. Despite having no recollection of any prior discussion on this topic, Clara rose carefully, mindful of the noises her patched shoe might betray. "What we've observed," she began with as much poise as she could muster, "is that people crave an experience that feels inclusive and intuitive, a digital environment that reassures them, almost like a gentle reminder that everything is going to be okay." Her words were met with smiles and nods, and even an investor in a beige suit commended her for speaking in terms they could truly understand. After the meeting, as the room began to clear, Alexander approached Clara once again. "You truly stole the show today," he said with a warm sincerity. "I hope it wasn't just my shoes that made an impression, but rather your ability to simplify the complex." For a moment, their eyes met in a silent understanding. Then, with a playful lilt, he added, "Do you have plans tonight? Consider joining us for dinner with the executive team. But perhaps change your shoes first." Clara's laughter was genuine this time, and as she prepared to leave, she felt a sense of belonging blossoming amidst the chaos of her first days. Clara Vega's day, already a whirlwind of mishaps and unexpected moments, had not yet finished testing her resilience. As the clock neared 20:48, she found herself engaged in a playful yet cautious exchange with Alexander Stone about the upcoming dinner. Alexander's tone was teasing as he remarked, "As long as you don't trip on your way there, I suppose it's fine. Just let me know if the menu includes all-you-can-eat sushi or something equally extravagant, and I'll send you the details by email." Clara couldn't help but smile wryly, responding with a light-hearted, And thank you for today, truly, before turning away with a mix of relief and lingering anxiety over the day's calamities. Later, as Clara made her way to the El Clarator, her patched-up shoe a constant reminder of the earlier crisis, her heart pounded wildly, each beat echoing the precarious state of her makeshift repair. Back in her small apartment, she stood before her closet like a contestant faced with a multiple-choice question in which every answer felt wrong. With a resigned sigh, she decided on the only option that could salvage her dignity, a simple yet elegant black dress. Black because it's slimming, she mused, and plain so it won't draw unwanted attention, adding that its long silhouette was a blessing since she had forgotten to shave her legs that morning. Clara pulled out the dress with a careful reverence, as if it were a talisman against the day's earlier disasters. She paired it with a set of well-worn flats that had accompanied her to more weddings than she cared to remember, a pair that had seen more dance floors than she had. With meticulous precision, she reapplied her lipstick, as if charting a delicate map to a more promising future. Her phone buzzed, and she quickly checked the email. The message was succinct. A formal dinner was scheduled at a French restaurant at 8 o'clock with a strict dress code, and most importantly, a humorous note. No duct tape, please. Clara couldn't help but laugh softly to herself. All right, no duct tape, she thought, but if my shoe decides to disintegrate again, I'll have to hold it together with nothing but prayer. At the subway station, Clara navigated the escalator with a grace that belied the inner turmoil she felt, each step a careful negotiation with gravity, especially after nearly tripping twice. She trod the busy city streets for 3 blocks, deftly dodging a stubborn puddle, an elderly woman maneuvering a bulky shopping cart, and a skateboarder who nearly transformed her into an unintended casualty. When the facade of the French restaurant came into view, Clara paused, her breath momentarily stolen by the scene before her. The building exuded the charm of an old-world cinema, with its softly lit exterior, patrons clad in coats as expensive as her monthly rent, and a waiter at the door who appeared as if he'd just clinched a prize for impeccable posture. With a courteous, "Good evening," the waiter greeted her, his accent refined and reminiscent of hours spent watching documentaries about the Louvre. Clara, attempting to project sophistication despite the telltale backpack slung over her shoulder, a remnant of her less glamorous daily life, stuttered slightly. Yes, I'm here with Mr. Stone's group." Quickly correcting herself, she added that she was an employee, albeit one who was merely accompanying Mr. Stone in meetings. The waiter merely nodded and ushered her to a secluded table in the back, where she took a moment to smooth her dress and adjust her appearance as she walked over the plush carpet. It was then that she caught sight of Alexander, sitting alone at the table. He exuded an effortless elegance in a perfectly tailored blazer, cradling a glass of wine with the nonchalance of someone who selected it solely for its fancy French label. Clara's voice, tinged with a mix of surprise and amusement, broke the silence. "Where's the team?" she asked, her tone a curious blend of inquiry and disbelief, as if she had unwittingly walked into a staged prank. Alexander merely grinned and explained that the other members had canceled at the last minute, a coincidence he compared to the serendipitous moment when one unexpectedly falls into the arms of a secret crush. "Totally unplanned," he added with a chuckle. "Have a seat, Clara. Consider it just a work dinner with cloth napkins and a waiter who may be silently judging you." Clara couldn't help but laugh as she sank into the chair, even as she noted that it seemed designed by someone who had never actually sat in one before. The conversation soon shifted to the subtleties of corporate life and the peculiarities of high-end dining. Alexander remarked dryly, "If something here turns out to be too expensive, we'll just pretend it tastes terrible," prompting Clara to quip, "I'll have sparkling water and a side of dignity, please," to which Alexander responded with hearty laughter. Perusing the menu, Clara was met with an array of French delicacies printed in fine script. Every dish seemed exotic and shrouded in mystery, from the enigmatic foie gras, duck liver that elicited both curiosity and pity, to the confit de canard, a dish that humorously implied that the duck suffered a double tragedy. "Someone should really tell that duck it's sacrificing too much," Clara mused aloud, prompting another round of shared laughter between her and Alexander. When the waiter returned, Clara confidently pointed to a dish whose name she could manage to pronounce. "I'll have the croque monsieur." It was, after all, a classic French sandwich, a fancy name for something as simple as bread and melted cheese, a simplicity that resonated with her own desire for clarity amid chaos. With their meals served, the pair dined with a mix of formal politeness and playful banter. Alexander handled his fork with the precision of a surgeon, while Clara, despite her best efforts, often fumbled her utensils as though they were part of a clumsy routine. "So, Alexander," she ventured between bites, "why do you invite me to these dinners? I'm beginning to feel like I'm part of some elaborate social experiment." Alexander's eyes twinkled with amusement as he replied, "You're unique, Clara. Your down-to-earth nature and the way you navigate mishaps, like dropping a napkin multiple times, are exactly what makes you stand out." Clara blushed at the gentle teasing, remarking, "I like to think of it as practical evolution. I use my feet when my hands are too busy." Their conversation flowed effortlessly from one quirky observation to another, and at one point, Alexander confessed that he almost received a standing ovation at the last presentation, a reaction spurred, perhaps, by his relief that Clara hadn't completely lost her composure. As the evening wore on, dessert arrived, a chocolate creation so artfully arranged that Clara was rendered momentarily speechless. "Is this for taking pictures or for eating?" she joked, mindful that too much pressure might lead to a culinary collapse worthy of a modern art scandal. Alexander's laugh was soft and genuine, the sound of two kindred spirits sharing a moment of unguarded levity. The atmosphere was warm and comfortable, as if they had known each other for years, despite the formal setting. When the dinner finally came to an end, they stepped out into the cool, crisp night air. Alexander removed his jacket and offered it to Clara, but she politely declined, teasing, "Thanks, but I'd probably panic and sweat if I wore that. I can't handle anything too expensive or delicate today." Their walk back was accompanied by light banter about the oddities of the city. Passing by a store window filled with ludicrously styled mannequins, one sporting a fur coat paired with shorts in a bizarre, post-apocalyptic ensemble, Clara couldn't help but comment on the absurdity of modern fashion. Alexander simply smiled, and soon they reached the subway entrance. Standing beneath the glow of vintage streetlights and softly lit storefronts, Clara turned to Alexander and said, "That was strangely nice, honestly the weirdest dinner I've had all year." Alexander's response was calm and measured. "I only go out when I have unpredictable company with a good sense of humor and a knack for turning disasters into charm." They laughed together as they walked, the city's quiet hum providing a gentle backdrop. Before parting ways at the subway station, Clara hesitated, then asked with a playful tone, "If I trip in the lobby tomorrow, will you fire me?" Alexander quipped, "Only if you do it with style." With that light-hearted farewell, Clara descended the steps, her heart feeling inexplicably lighter, as if the burdens of the day had been shared and diminished by the evening's unexpected camaraderie. The next morning, however, brought a harsh reminder of reality. Clara awoke before her alarm, a sure sign that her sleep-deprived mind was not ready for the day ahead. Groggily, she recalled an ominous email from the real estate agency, its subject line a stark final, "Notice before legal action." Despite reading it several times, the words only deepened her sense of dread. Her bank account was nearly empty, and her financial app stubbornly froze at every turn. "All right, universe," she muttered. "I get it. Enough testing for now." Determined not to let despair win, Clara dressed in a pair of clean jeans and a simple black blouse, her hair tied back in the most practical style possible. She grabbed a travel mug filled with a potent mixture of coffee and determination and rushed out the door. On the crowded subway ride to Manhattan, Clara's thoughts drifted between work and the lingering uncertainties of her life. At the turnstile, she nearly forgot to swipe her card, a small mishap that, in retrospect, seemed almost fitting. Once at the office, her day began on autopilot as she navigated the familiar corridors. Fiona greeted her with a playful, "Hey, Miss Lettuce, sleep well? Or has sleep become a distant memory?" Clara could only manage a tired smile in response, her mind already focused on the upcoming meeting with Alexander. Entering Alexander's office, Clara found him meticulously reviewing documents and sipping coffee, black and unsweetened, a detail she secretly considered a crime against good taste. "Good morning, Clara. Please, have a seat," Alexander said with a calm professionalism that belied the day's earlier chaos. "I have something to show you." As she sat down, trying to hide the lingering worry on her face, Alexander's words hinted at the next chapter of her unpredictable corporate journey. Clara Vega found herself at a crossroads when Alexander Stone, her confident and empathetic supervisor, entrusted her with a special project that had long been on hold. The folder he handed her brimmed with potential, its pages filled with intricate numbers, detailed graphs, and dense text that forced her to read each line twice. As she skimmed the initial pages, Clara's eyes widened in a mixture of intrigue and apprehension. "This is complex," she murmured, yet Alexander's encouraging tone cut through her hesitation. "It is, but you have exactly the right approach," Alexander assured her, his eyes conveying genuine admiration. "You're direct, creative, quick, and unmistakably different." Taken aback by his praise, Clara couldn't help but smile shyly. "Me? Really?" she managed, her voice trembling with both surprise and a hint of pride. But, as with every opportunity, there was a catch. Alexander explained that the project would demand extra time, possibly late nights, and when Clara inquired whether the additional workload would be compensated, Alexander nodded affirmatively. The promise of extra pay sent a small wave of relief through her, and with renewed determination she responded, "I'll do it." Yet beneath her newfound resolve lay an unspoken worry. When Alexander gently asked if everything was truly all right, Clara hesitated before confessing, "It's just some personal issues." With a kind smile, he replied, "If you ever need anything, let me know." Buoyed by his support, Clara left his office and dove straight into her work. She spent the remainder of the day sketching ideas and scribbling notes at such a pace that the paper nearly tore under her fervor. All the while, her phone buzzed incessantly with messages from the real estate office, a stark reminder of the financial crisis looming over her. The persistent texts urged her to resolve her situation by the following day, a pressure that left her parched, her mouth dry despite her attempts to drink water. As the workday drew to a close and the office gradually emptied, Fiona, her ever-cheerful colleague, approached with a small peace offering. "You still here?" Fiona teased, eyes twinkling. "Planning to camp out with the new project?" With a playful roll of her eyes, Clara accepted the treat. "At least eat this. It'll help keep your mood in check," Fiona said with a laugh. Clara's gratitude was genuine. Those small moments of levity were lifelines in a sea of challenges. After Fiona departed, Clara mustered the courage to share her progress with Alexander. Clutching her rough drafts and a cascade of handwritten ideas, she knocked on his office door and stepped in. "I put together a rough draft of my ideas," she announced. Alexander carefully reviewed her work, occasionally interjecting short comments before nodding approvingly. "This is really good," he said sincerely. "You truly understand people, and that's a rare quality." Although Clara forced a smile at his praise, her mind remained heavy with worry. Noticing her subdued demeanor, Alexander inquired softly, "Do you want to tell me what's going on?" With a deep sigh, Clara confessed, "I'm about to be evicted. I have until tomorrow to pay the rent, and my salary isn't nearly enough." Her admission hung in the air, heavy with vulnerability. Without a trace of surprise, Alexander reached into his drawer and produced a blue folder. "Our company has a support program for situations like these," he explained calmly. "It's discreet, temporary, and not charity. It's help for those who work hard." Clara clutched the folder as though it weighed a ton. "I don't know if I can accept this," she whispered, her voice trembling with the weight of her perceived failure. "Why not?" Alexander pressed gently. "Accepting help isn't failing, it's simply living with a little less weight on your shoulders." After a moment of quiet reflection, Clara closed the folder and asked, "Can I think about it?" "Of course, but think carefully," he replied. That night, Clara returned home with aching feet and a mind whirling from the day's events. Alone in her modest apartment, she reopened the blue folder and read every word. Slowly, the support program began to reveal its true potential. It would cover her rent and several small bills, offering her a temporary breather. The next morning, Clara arrived early at the office, the blue folder now a symbol of her renewed hope. She made her way straight to Alexander's office. "Good morning," she greeted, folder in hand. Alexander's warm smile was the only response she needed. "I thought about it and I accept," she continued. Alexander nodded reassuringly. "Everything will be fine," he said, adding, "Now get back to work. We have a tight deadline." As Clara left his office, her steps felt noticeably lighter, as if the burden of uncertainty had been momentarily lifted. That Monday, buoyed by the support and her own creative spark, Clara arrived at work with a renewed sense of purpose. She filled her mind with ideas and a tiny yet persistent hope that she could change something. even if it was just altering the background color of her presentation slides. Sitting at her desk, she opened her laptop, took a deep breath, and began to structure the project in a way that made sense to her. It was clear, concise, and enriched with simple, relatable examples. As she typed, she couldn't help but chuckle at the humorous comparisons she devised. Comparing the new system to making instant noodles. "Just 3 easy steps and you're done," she murmured, jotting down her notes with enthusiasm. Fiona strolled by with a water bottle, teasing, "Talking to yourself already? Only when you have good ideas. Maybe you should start giving lectures." Clara smiled at the remark, then immersed herself in crafting a presentation that was less technical and more practical. She interwove simple graphs with natural conversational language, replacing convoluted terms with everyday comparisons. With every keystroke, her work took shape, growing in clarity and confidence. Later that afternoon, Alexander reappeared beside her desk. "You look very focused," he observed. When Clara turned her screen towards him, Alexander's eyes lit up. "This is excellent, really," he declared, noting that its informal style was precisely what made it effective. It's clear, direct, and it builds confidence. After a thoughtful pause, Alexander surprised her with an invitation. "I want you to come with me to present this at the technology fair in Chicago," he announced. Clara blinked in astonishment. "A fair? In another state?" she stuttered. "Yes, our company has a booth there," he explained. "I think your proposal will truly stand out. You have a unique way of explaining things, and that is incredibly rare." Clara's heart pounded as she considered the prospect. She had never traveled for work before, and the thought both excited and terrified her. Over the next week, as the days flew by in a blur of deadlines and late nights, Clara's nervous excitement grew. Fiona even lent her a small bag and offered some friendly advice. "Just don't say, into the microphone, okay?" Clara promised to try her best. Finally, on Friday, Clara and Alexander met at the airport. The flight was smooth and they spent the hours chatting about light topics, quirky songs that got stuck in one's head, and the perennial disappointment of airplane food. "Every time I order chicken, I regret it," Clara joked, eliciting a laugh from Alexander. Once in Chicago, they went directly to the hotel before heading to the fair venue the following day. At the venue, the reserved presentation room was bustling with energy. Clara ran through her slides with her team. Initially, her voice wavered with nerves, but as the session progressed, she relaxed. She spoke clearly and confidently, using her simple yet effective examples to demystify complex concepts. Team members smiled and nodded, and even one technical lead remarked, "She really has a knack for this. People actually pay attention and understand." Inside, Clara's heart swelled with pride, even as she maintained a modest exterior. Later that evening, after a successful rehearsal, Alexander invited her to dinner at a casual spot, a welcome respite from the formality of the earlier French restaurant. Over a light meal, they laughed about the day's mishaps. "If I forget a part tomorrow, can I improvise?" Clara asked nervously. Alexander grinned. "You can. Just don't bring up your instant noodle analogy on stage." Their banter continued as they strolled back to the hotel, the cool night air and soft glow of streetlights setting a reflective tone. "Promise you won't leave me alone on stage," Clara teased. Alexander replied, "Only if you promise to trip with style." Their laughter echoed down the quiet street, and despite the challenges, Clara felt a warmth and security she hadn't experienced in a long time. That night, Clara went to sleep with mixed emotions: nervous anticipation for the presentation and a comforting sense of connection with Alexander. In the early hours of the morning, she awoke with her heart racing, checking her phone to find it was 7 a.m. In a half-dream, she recalled speaking gibberish on stage, accidentally mixing French with technical jargon. Shaking off the remnants of her unsettling dream, she took a deep breath in front of her mirror, whispering words of reassurance to herself. "It'll be fine, you practiced, and no one here knows you trip over your own feet." Downstairs for breakfast, she found Alexander already seated, coffee in hand and a notebook open before him. "Did you sleep well?" he inquired gently. Clara replied with a humorous smile, "I dreamed I was a high-tech sleeping beauty, with slides." They shared a brief moment of levity before heading to the fair. The venue was crowded, yet in their reserved presentation room, Clara reviewed her slides one last time. When Alexander introduced her and then passed the stage to her, she began with a slight tremor in her voice. However, as she spoke, the simple comparisons and clear language resonated with the audience. Laughter punctuated her explanations, and attentive nods affirmed her clarity. After the presentation concluded, during the Q&A session, an attendee praised the transparency of her explanation, noting that they had never understood the topic as well before. As the room cleared, Alexander turned to her and said, "You were amazing." Clara could only smile, replying playfully, "I didn't faint, so that's a win." Alexander chuckled and added, "And you even got a tech guy to laugh. That's incredibly rare." Their mutual laughter filled the brief silence that followed. The rest of the day was spent engaging with visitors, exchanging contacts, and gathering insightful feedback. For the first time in weeks, Clara felt that her struggles were shared by others, and the support from her colleagues and Alexander had lit a spark of hope within her. Her journey was far from over, but she now believed that she could overcome both the professional challenges and personal hardships with resilience, creativity, and the kindness of those around her. End of chapter 33. Clara Rivera's afternoon unfolded like a carefully scripted scene from a bittersweet indie film. After the exhilaration of a triumphant presentation, she returned to her modest hotel room at the modern Midtown Inn, her spirit buoyed despite the lingering exhaustion. Dropping her worn leather bag onto an old, creaking chair, Clara collapsed onto the soft bed with a mix of relief and disbelief. The presentation, which had been a high-wire act of creativity and courage, had been a resounding success. Her trembling fingers reached for her phone as she quickly texted her closest friend Marisol, confessing, "The presentation was a success, I'm still alive, and I didn't trip." The mere thought of that near mishap, which had become a running joke between her and her mentor, Alexander Monroe, brought a fleeting smile to her face. Alexander's earlier subtle smiles during their interactions, 3 gentle smiles that had punctuated their exchange, seemed to linger in her memory, as if affirming that her performance had defied the clumsy reputation that office gossip so eagerly fueled. "Is this a miracle?" Marisol had texted back, and Clara had simply replied, "Of course it's a miracle. And a sign. Enjoy this moment." After a brief rest, Clara gathered her strength and descended into the hotel lobby, where she found Alexander waiting near the El Clarator. His eyes twinkled with the warmth of a mentor and a friend as he asked, "Ready for dinner?" with an easy grace. Clara's stomach grumbled in answer. "Hungry? Yes," she replied, though her heart still fluttered with the residual adrenaline of the day. With a measured pace, they stepped into the El Clarator together. A gentle silence fell over them, not the awkward kind that weighs on conversations, but a comfortable quiet that spoke of unspoken understandings. As the El Clarator ascended, Clara glanced at the softly glowing numbers on the panel, while Alexander maintained a respectful silence for several seconds before breaking it. "I am proud of you today, Clara," he said softly. "Thank you. You helped me believe that I could do it too." His words, sincere and devoid of patronizing tones, resonated deep within her. "It wasn't help," she responded, her voice quiet yet firm. "I just saw what was already there." Their eyes met in the mirror-like surface of the El Clarator doors, and for a moment, a different kind of smile, one filled with a hint of something more intimate, played upon their lip. Just as the connection deepened, the El Clarator shuddered to a halt, plunging them into a brief, unexpected pause. Clara's eyes widened in surprise. "Was that what I think it was?" she murmured, a nervous laugh escaping her lips. "Yes," Alexander replied with a playful tilt of his head. "Looks like we're stuck." The situation, although inconvenient, seemed almost comically timed, like a twist of fate in a romantic comedy. "Is this some kind of joke from the universe?" Clara asked, half joking as she attempted to keep her composure. "Maybe the universe does enjoy playing pranks," she added with a chuckle that belied her underlying anxiety. For a couple of heartbeats, the lights in the El Clarator flickered off before returning, adding to the surreal ambience. "You've got to be kidding me," she muttered under her breath as Alexander reached for the emergency button. A calm voice on the other end assured them that help was on the way, though the immediate reality was that they remained momentarily stranded. Leaning casually against the cool metal wall, Alexander remarked, "Well, we're stuck now." Clara, inhaling deeply, tried to adopt the nonchalant attitude of someone used to dramatic pauses in a film. "Okay, no panic, I just have to pretend this is normal, like a dramatic pause in a movie," she mused. The conversation took an unexpectedly flirtatious turn. "So, you're the mysterious character today, and I'm the one who tends to ramble when nervous," Alexander teased. Clara's cheeks flushed as she glanced up at him, her voice softening. "Not quite, Alexander," she corrected gently. This really does feel like a movie scene. All that's missing is the kiss. The suggestion hung in the air, charged with both anticipation and hesitation. Should we make this movie real? Alexander asked, stepping closer so that the cramped space seemed to shrink around them. Clara's heart skipped a beat, and her pulse raced as the El Clarator suddenly jolted back to life, resuming its descent with a small, almost apologetic jerk. "Of course, right now," she quipped with a wry smile, her eyes drifting upward toward the ceiling in a mix of amusement and exasperation. Alexander's laughter, warm and genuine, filled the brief silence. "The universe just doesn't want clichés today," he remarked as the El Clarator finally reached the ground floor. When the doors slid open, they stepped out side by side into the softly lit corridor, the lingering electricity of their near kiss almost palpable, yet unspoken. Once outside, Alexander broke the silence with a gentle statement. "So, should we pretend nothing happened?" Clara hesitated, her voice betraying a mix of uncertainty and hope. "I'm not sure I want to pretend." With a playful nod, Alexander suggested, "Then let's save that thought for after dinner. Deal?" Smiling at the unspoken promise of a conversation yet to come, they left the hotel and headed toward the restaurant where a part of the company team awaited them. That evening, the world outside seemed lighter, as if the brief, unexpected interlude in the El Clarator had recalibrated the tone of the night. The dinner unfolded in a relaxed atmosphere, punctuated by shared laughter and tender glances. Even as the flight back to New York was quiet, filled with a comfortable silence that hinted at deeper thoughts and shared secrets, Clara's mind replayed the events of the day like scenes from a cherished film. Sitting by the airplane window, she watched the clouds drift lazily by, each one a reminder of the fleeting moments that had defined her day. The triumphant presentation, the nerve-wracking trip, and the almost kiss that now swirled in her memory like a dream. Back in New York, as they arrived at Luminatech's sleek office building, Clara hesitated for just a moment before stepping inside. The buzz of whispered conversations and amused glances from colleagues hinted at the spread of the El Clarator saga, an anecdote that had grown in the telling. Should we just pretend it was a regular business trip? She wondered silently. In a hushed tone, Alexander had mentioned, "I'm not sure if I want that either, but it's easier for now." Their unspoken agreement to let the rumors settle for the moment had done little to quiet the persistent hum of gossip. At the water cooler, murmurs and knowing smiles followed Clara wherever she went. Marisol, ever the inquisitive friend, was the first to bring it up. "I know everything," she declared, with a wink that only added to the mystery. Clara's eyes widened in exasperation as she listened to the retelling of the near-kiss incident. The tale, it seemed, had mutated into a full-blown office legend. "That story is spreading like free coffee," Marisol laughed, "and now you're the main character of a corporate rumor." Clara sighed, a mixture of amusement and frustration flooding her. "Great, now I'm known as the El Clarator girl," she muttered under her breath, though, deep down, a small part of her appreciated the unexpected attention. Over the following days, the whispers and glances continued. Clara noticed that colleagues now regarded her with a newfound curiosity, as if she had somehow leveled up without even trying. Yet the attention was a double-edged sword. While she craved recognition for her work, the brilliant presentation, the innovative project ideas, and the tangible results, it was disconcerting to be remembered for a potential romance scene in an El Clarator. Determined to reclaim her narrative, she resolved to focus on her project, letting her ideas speak louder than the rumors. Alexander, ever perceptive, maintained his professionalism while subtly acknowledging the change in their dynamic. When they passed each other in the hallway, their eyes lingered a fraction longer, though neither mentioned the incident explicitly. It wasn't until one long afternoon, after a series of back-to-back meetings, that Clara found herself alone in the El Clarator once more. The doors closed, and she pressed the button for her floor. Moments later, Alexander stepped in, and they stood together in an almost palpable silence. Breaking the quiet, Clara offered with a playful tone, "I heard we're becoming an office legend," Alexander replied. "I heard that too. And you're not going to say anything?" Clara grinned and added, "I'd rather not add fuel to the rumors, but if you want, I can put out an official statement. Nothing happened in the El Clarator." They shared a conspiratorial smile, a tacit agreement that sometimes silence spoke volumes. As the doors opened, Alexander murmured, "I need to talk to you later," referring, no doubt, to the project. Clara simply nodded, her heart pounding with a mixture of professional pride and unspoken emotion. Back at her desk, her mind raced. Recognition, results, respect. Yet nothing in her performance or the accolades could quite capture what she felt when she looked at Alexander. Those fleeting moments of vulnerability and connection that defied easy explanation. Later that morning, Alexander called Clara into his office once again. After reviewing her project's success, the board had approved her innovative proposal and decided to implement it in the upcoming campaign. He added, "Your work truly brought a new approach. More than that, you got people's attention." Clara's heart swelled with gratitude as she responded, "I'm happy to hear that. I really put in the effort." Then, with genuine concern in his eyes, Alexander addressed the rumors. "I don't want this to affect you or your reputation here," he said. "It already is, in a small way. How do you feel about that?" Clara paused, feeling vulnerable yet relieved by his openness. "I never imagined I'd care so much about what people say," she admitted. "But I do. I want to be remembered for my work, not as the El Clarator girl." Alexander's expression softened as he said, "You're one of the smartest and most creative people who have ever worked here, and that's not an exaggeration." Clara managed a quiet thank you in response, feeling the weight of his words settle around her like a warm blanket. "If you ever want to talk about anything, I'm here," he added. With that, she left his office, her heart lighter, her resolve stronger, and a newfound sense of purpose guiding her every step. Later, Marisol approached her desk with a teasing smile, inquiring, "So, did he talk to you about the rumors?" Clara sighed. "Everything stayed the same. Sometimes you just need time, or maybe a new El Clarator." Despite the persistent chatter, Clara chose to focus on what truly mattered. Her work, her creative spirit, and the connections that enriched her life. As the week drew to a close, a formal invitation to Lumina Tech's annual gala arrived via email. Elegant lettering, declaring a formal dress code. Clara read the invitation several times, ensuring it wasn't spam, then sighed as she contemplated the challenge of finding something appropriate to wear. With a resigned smile, she walked over to Marisol's desk, sharing, "Did you see the gala invitation?" Marisol laughed. "Of course, and yes, I already have a dress." Clara's preparations for the company gala had become a full-blown adventure of their own. Over the past few days, she had transformed from a nervous newcomer into someone determined to embrace every twist that life threw her way. After receiving the formal invitation with its elegant calligraphy and the strict formal dress code clearly underlined, Clara had immediately set about claramping her look. She booked a salon appointment and meticulously picked out a nail color that would complement her new, borrowed outfit. "Of course you did," came a teasing response from her friend Elise, whose own sense of style was as unyielding as it was impeccable. In a conversation between the two, Elise's determined look was unmistakable. "You're going, Clara, and you'll be wearing one of my dresses," she insisted, her tone both reassuring and insistent. "You're taller, and you even know how to sew, so you'll make it work." Despite her initial hesitations, Clara found herself agreeing, though not without a twinge of nervousness. 3 days later, in the quiet solitude of the company bathroom, Clara struggled with the zipper of the dress that Elise had so generously lent her. The garment wasn't a perfect fit, but it allowed her enough freedom to move, if only. Glancing down at her feet, she saw her special occasion heels, the pair she'd been saving for moments like this. However, her relief was short-lived when she noticed that the left heel was already tilting suspiciously, as if hinting at its impending betrayal. "This will be fine," Clara whispered to herself, steeling her resolve. She stared into the mirror, attempting to convince herself that it was just a party, a gathering filled with lively music, sumptuous food, and a crowd of people who, by all accounts, made 3 times her salary. It was supposed to be an evening of celebration, not a minefield of potential embarrassments. When Clara arrived at the venue, it truly felt like stepping into a cinematic moment. The space was aglow with soft, radiant lights, and clusters of elegantly dressed guests mingled while holding drinks and engaging in animated conversations. The soft strains of instrumental music played in the background, providing an ambient soundtrack to the evening. Clara walked carefully along the polished floor, her every step measured as she tried hard not to trip over her own feet. Just then, a familiar voice called out, "Clara?" Turning, she found Alexander standing there with a slight, knowing smile. Adjusting the strap of her borrowed dress, she stammered, "You look normal." Alexander's eyes crinkled as he replied, "I mean, elegant, but normal for someone who's always elegant. Thank you." I think. There was an ease in his manner, a silent acknowledgement of the trials they both had endured. "You look different tonight," Alexander remarked in a gentle tone, and Clara offered a nervous smile. "The dress is Elise's, and my heel might just break off at any moment," Alexander suggested. "Then let's walk slowly." With that, the two of them drifted toward a table where a few team members were gathered, sharing light-hearted banter about the fair, the project, and the occasional mishaps that seemed to punctuate their days. They laughed together, while Clara tried to ignore the subtle, sometimes curious glances from the crowd. Throughout most of the party, Clara stayed close to Alexander, but not too clingy. She kept a careful balance, aware of the groups of high-powered executives and the elegantly attired former partners that Alexander had once dated, women who appeared as if they had leaped from the glossy pages of a fashion magazine. Despite these intimidating presences, Clara endeavored to remain confident. Later in the evening, Elise appeared once more, balancing a drink with practiced grace. "You're doing great," she encouraged Clara. "You haven't spilled anything, you haven't tripped. So, that's already a success. Remember, there's still half an hour left and a lot can go wrong. Just relax, and don't worry." Clara glanced over to see Alexander engaged in conversation with two partners, but then, unexpectedly, he looked directly at her. Their eyes met for a brief, charged moment, and Clara quickly looked away, taking a deep, steadying breath. Not long after, a small but pivotal moment occurred. As Clara moved slightly to the side, she felt something unsettling under her foot, a sudden, alarming wobble from her left heel. She tried to maintain her composure, but with each step, the unstable shoe betrayed her. Finally, with a soft yet distinct snap, the heel gave out. "Oh no," she whispered in dismay. "What is it?" Elise hurried over, concerned. "My heel, it's completely crooked," Clara explained, her voice laced with embarrassment. "Can you walk?" she asked ruefully, adding, "Only if I waddle like a penguin." Elise quickly took charge. "Come with me," she urged discreetly, guiding Clara to a quieter corner of the garden adjacent to the hall. In this secluded space, the clamor of the party softened, and a calm silence prevailed. Clara wailed. "Stay here," Elise promised. "I'll see if I can find a spare pair of shoes with the event team. You know I'm always prepared." Meanwhile, Clara sat on a nearby bench, desperately trying to hide her broken shoe and preserve what remained of her dignity. It wasn't long before Alexander appeared again. "Everything okay?" he inquired softly. "More or less," Clara admitted. "My heel literally broke," she added with a laugh tinged with frustration. "Do you need to help me make a run for it? I'd at least like to walk straight." Alexander, ever the calm presence, sat down beside her. "I thought you were shining in there, Clara, and then you disappeared because your shoe betrayed you," he teased gently. "I didn't want to become the talk of the night." Alexander's eyes sparkled as he replied, "I think you already are, but in a good way." Clara looked at him, searching his expression for reassurance. "Are you sure?" she asked quietly. "I am," he confirmed, and they sat in a companionable silence for a few moments, the distant sounds of the party fading into a gentle murmur. After a while, Alexander broke the silence, recalling a fond memory. "Do you remember when we first met?" he asked. Clara's face softened as she replied, "Of course. I was adjusting my bra in the reflection of your car window, and you had that ridiculous piece of lettuce stuck in your teeth." Alexander laughed, the memory vivid in his mind. "Why did I hire you then? Because you're exactly what this company needed, and maybe what I needed too," he said with genuine warmth. Before Clara could fully absorb his words, Elise reappeared, this time triumphantly holding a pair of flats that she'd managed to procure. "Mission accomplished," she declared. Relieved, Clara stood up, removed her broken heels, and slipped into the comfortable flats with a palpable sense of relief. "You saved me." "Always," Clara said gratefully. Alexander watched her, his smile sincere as he remarked, "Now you can go back with your dignity intact, or even dance." "I don't know if I'm ready to dance," Clara replied with a hint of playful uncertainty. "But if I step on your foot, at least blame the broken heel," she added with a laugh. Encouraged by their banter, they made their way to the center of the room. As the music slowed, Alexander extended his hand, and after a brief hesitation, Clara took it. They began to dance slowly, without any rehearsed steps, just two colleagues synchronizing in the moment. "This is starting to feel like one of those movie scenes," Clara murmured, her heart growing lighter with each step. "All that's missing is the perfect ending," she laughed softly. For a while, as they danced, nothing seemed broken. Not the heel, not her confidence, and certainly not the fragile edges of her heart. In that moment, the night transformed into something magical, where the worries of the day melted away into the rhythm of their gentle swaying. The following Monday, Clara returned to the office with a new sense of self. Yet something had changed in her. Perhaps it was the way Alexander had looked at her when they said goodbye that night, or maybe it was the memory of their shared dance that lingered in her thoughts. As she immersed herself in work, answering emails, reviewing spreadsheets, and drafting new proposals, her heart skipped a beat every time Alexander passed by. The words in her mind became a jumble. He was her boss, of course, yet he also danced so gracefully and delivered compliments with an ease that belied any pretense. Elise, ever perceptive, soon noticed Clara's distracted demeanor. "You're avoiding me, aren't you?" she teased gently. "It's not you, it's my head. Is it Alexander?" Clara made a face before replying, "Not exactly. It's just, everything feels too close, too real." Elise's knowing smile deepened. "So, you're afraid you might really like him?" she ventured. "Maybe I already do, and perhaps he doesn't see it the same way." Clara sighed. "He hasn't done anything since the party. No message, no note, nothing." In the ensuing days, Clara began to pull away. Not out of deliberate choice, but as a quiet defense mechanism. She started sending her reports by email instead of delivering them in person, and kept her conversations with Alexander succinct. Alexander noticed the change, but he chose not to address it directly. Then, on a rainy Thursday morning during a team meeting, Alexander delivered a short presentation to the entire department. His speech focused on the company's progress and new projects, but then he paused and said, "None of this would have happened without a team that believes in simplicity and sees beyond the rules." His eyes briefly locked with Clara's, sending a subtle message of recognition and support. After the meeting, Elise pulled Clara aside. "That was for you, you know. Everyone saw it," she said quietly. Clara's cheeks flushed as she realized that the story of the almost kiss and the Auditorium was now office lore. Though it had become a hot topic, she was determined not to let it overshadow her work. In fact, despite the murmurs and knowing glances, she longed to be remembered for her innovative ideas and solid performance. Later that afternoon, an invitation arrived in Clara's inbox for a conference in another city, a prestigious opportunity to lead a panel and speak about simple innovation. Nervously, she walked into Alexander's office, holding the printed email. "Did you know about this?" she asked tentatively. Alexander's response was immediate and encouraging. "I did, and I thought it would be a great opportunity for you. You'll be representing the company and yourself," he said. Clara hesitated for a moment. "Is this your way of pushing me away?" she queried, her voice wavering slightly. Alexander's expression shifted to one of genuine surprise. "Of course not. Why would you think that?" he replied. "We haven't talked much since the party because I thought you needed space. I just hoped you'd changed your mind about everything." After a long pause, Clara finally admitted, "Maybe I do need to travel to think. I just don't know how to move forward without feeling pressured." Alexander nodded in understanding. "If you decide to go, we'll support you." With that, Clara left his office, her mind awash with conflicting thoughts and new hopes. During the week away at the conference, Clara immersed herself in meetings, presentations, and panel discussions. She garnered praise, made valuable contacts, and even received invitations to new projects. Despite all the professional accolades, her mind never strayed far from the events at the gala and the tender moments shared with Alexander. In that mingling of triumph and uncertainty, Clara began to understand that while success was measured in recognition and results, the true change was in how she felt, whole, confident, and ready to embrace whatever came next. Clara Vega couldn't shake the feeling that something essential was missing, a subtle void that no amount of success or praise could fill. Even as every accomplishment of the past week unfolded with perfect clarity, she felt that, deep down, someone was absent. Every joyful moment or amusing incident made her think, "I wish Alexander would share in this with me." Yet despite her hopes, neither she nor Alexander exchanged any messages during the trip. Each day her eyes would dart to her phone, eagerly awaiting a notification that never came. On the final day of the journey, Isabella Chen called Clara via video. "I need to update you," Isabella said with a determined glint. "What happened?" "Alexander seems so different. More serious, quieter," Isabella teased. "It's like he went off to work somewhere else for a week." Clara sighed in response. "Exactly. And it feels as if the entire company noticed my absence too. What if I return and nothing has changed?" Isabella's tone softened. "Then you deal with it, but at least you know you tried." With that, Clara ended the call and stared out of her hotel window at the sprawling city below. The dazzling urban lights and shimmering skyscrapers looked breathtaking, yet they seemed distant from the matters of the heart that truly mattered. Returning to the office on Monday, Clara stepped into the building with measured, steady strides, though her heart pounded with anxious rhythm. The El Clarita ride felt interminable, each floor marking an eternity. When she finally reached her destination, warm embraces, smiles, and light-hearted jokes greeted her. One colleague remarked, "The office was too quiet without you," while another added, "I didn't think I made that much noise, but your presence is the good kind of noise." At her desk, an envelope caught her eye. Inside was a neatly folded note bearing the simple message, "You were missed." Clara held it for several moments before carefully tucking it away, feeling an overwhelming urge to run straight to Alexander's office. Yet, she instead sat at her computer, inhaling deeply as she organized data for the new campaign. That's when her gaze landed on an unusual calendar entry, an alignment meeting with the creative team and the CEO, and notably, her name was the only one mentioned. Curiosity and trepidation mingled in her mind. It was rare to receive a sudden meeting request on a random Tuesday without prior notice, especially one that seemed to concern only her. Gathering her courage, Clara left her desk and made her way to the meeting room. Inside, Alexander sat at the table with 2 steaming cups of coffee. "Hi, Clara," he greeted with a calm, reassuring smile. "Have a seat for a moment." She sat down warily, sensing that this was no ordinary meeting. Alexander broke the silence. "I've been thinking a lot about how to ask you to speak with me today without making things awkward. But then I realized we've both endured far more embarrassing moments than a simple invitation to talk, especially if we recall those mishaps with lipsticks, bras, and car windows." Their shared laughter dissolved the tension, and as the mirth subsided, Alexander's tone grew earnest. "The truth is, Clara, I really admire you. Not just for your work, but for how you do it, the way you think and transform confusion into clarity. Over time, this admiration has grown into something far more personal." Clara looked into his eyes, where sincerity shone without hesitation. "I spent a long time convincing myself that it was all just part of work, that I should pretend nothing was happening. I told myself I didn't feel anything, but deep down, I knew it was only fear holding me back." Alexander's expression softened with understanding. "Fear of what? That it's all in your head? That you're misinterpreting attention for interest or compliments for affection?" He paused, then continued gently, "I like you, Clara. I truly do." In that profound silence that followed, every word, every pause was laden with meaning. Resting his arms on the table, Alexander asked, "So, what do we do now?" Clara mustered a small smile. "You're great at making plans. What do you suggest?" Alexander's answer was simple yet profound. "Let's take things slow. No pretense that nothing is happening. Perhaps we could start by going out to dinner, not as boss and employee, but as 2 adults trying to understand what we feel." Clara's heart warmed at his suggestion. "That sounds fair," she agreed. "And maybe, just maybe, we could avoid those menus with unreadable prices. I promise I'll pick a restaurant with prices I can actually comprehend." They both laughed, and before Clara left the meeting room, Alexander pressed a small box into her hands. Opening it with trembling fingers, Clara expected something formal, but instead found a keychain shaped like a mirror with an engraved phrase, "Warning, may contain lettuce and feelings." She burst into laughter before she could even finish reading. "Is this real?" she managed, between giggles. "It is, custom made," Alexander replied with a satisfied bow. "My mission is complete." After their brief, heartfelt exchange, Clara returned to work, feeling lighter, though there was no grand public declaration or a dramatic kiss. In the ensuing months, their relationship evolved gradually. Dinners here, walks there, nothing extravagant at first, and that was precisely what made it so genuine. At work, they maintained a professional facade, Yet the occasional knowing glance, a discreet smile, and strategically timed messages spoke volumes. Clara would sometimes chuckle at notes left on her computer that teased about the inside joke everyone seemed to know. In time, however, Clara began to pull away subconsciously, opting to send reports by email and keeping her conversations with Alexander short. Observing this, Alexander remained silent, yet the air between them was thick with unspoken thoughts. One rainy Thursday morning, during a department meeting, Alexander delivered a brief presentation outlining Then, he added, none of this would have been possible without a team that believes in simplicity and sees beyond the rules. I believe in people who don't fit the mold. His gaze swept across the room before settling on Clara. The applause that followed was heartfelt, and although Clara felt a pang of embarrassment at being the center of office gossip, she also felt a renewed sense of purpose. Later that afternoon, an invitation arrived for a prestigious conference in another city, where Clara was chosen to lead a panel on simple innovation. Nervously, she approached Alexander's office with the printed email in her hand. "Did you know about this?" she asked softly. Alexander's reply was immediate. "I did, and I thought it would be a fantastic opportunity for you to represent not only the company, but yourself as well." Clara hesitated, her voice barely a whisper. "Is this your way of pushing me away?" Alexander's eyes widened in genuine surprise. "Of course not. I thought you needed space because everything has felt so strange lately." After a heavy pause, Clara admitted, "Maybe I do need to travel, to think things through without feeling pressured." Alexander nodded. "If you decide to go, we'll all support you." With a mind swirling with conflicting thoughts and fresh hopes, Clara confirmed the trip and embarked on the conference. Throughout the week away, Clara focused on her role at the event, attending meetings, delivering her panel discussion, and receiving praise from peers and industry leaders. Yet, amid the accolades and new contacts, her thoughts kept returning to the small moments with Alexander, the almost shared jokes, the silent glances, and the warmth of a genuine smile. Upon her return, every notification on her phone held the promise of a message from him, yet nothing came, leaving her both hopeful and uncertain. Clara stood at the threshold of a new beginning, her heart trembling with raw emotion as the soft strains of music and murmured blessings filled the air. The ceremony, held on a serene beach at sunset, was intimate and imbued with genuine meaning. Close friends, co-workers, and family members gathered in a simple yet deeply heartfelt celebration. As Clara walked slowly toward Alexander at the altar, she no longer thought about the mishaps of her past, the slips, the wardrobe malfunctions, or the whispers of office gossip. In that moment, every step was laden with purpose. She focused solely on the love that had grown between them over time, a love she had often doubted she deserved. Alexander met her gaze with a look of unwavering determination. His hands, firm and steady, reached out to gently clasp hers, a silent promise passing between them. "Today," he began, his voice quivering ever so slightly with emotion, "I vow to make you laugh even on the hardest days." A soft ripple of laughter spread through the crowd at his heartfelt declaration, and Clara, with a glimmer of mischief in her eyes, replied, "And I promise never to adjust my bra in a car window again," drawing a chorus of laughter from those present. Their exchange, equal parts tender and humorous, encapsulated the essence of their journey, a journey marked by vulnerability, resilience, and unexpected joy. As they exchanged vows, the air shimmered with the weight of their promises. Rings were slipped onto fingers, sealing the pact of love that had been forged through countless trials and quiet moments of understanding. When Alexander's lips met Clara's in a kiss, it was more than a simple act of romance. It was the culmination of a long, winding path that had led them to this sacred juncture. The kiss resonated like the final chord of a symphony, echoing the many highs and lows of their shared past and the hopeful notes of a future built together. The reception that followed was a testament to the couple's unique spirit. The atmosphere was light-hearted, filled with lively music, dancing, and playful inside jokes that only those closest to them could truly appreciate. Alexander, ever the unconventional soul, began the celebration by slipping off his shoes at the very start, much to the amusement of the gathered guests. Clara, in a sweet nod to the quirks of fate that had once threatened to derail her, received a whimsical new mug inscribed with "The Maiden of Reflection and Greens," a tongue-in-cheek homage to the moments of absurdity that had colored their early days. After the formalities, the newlyweds stole away to a secluded part of the beach. Hand in hand, they ran toward the gentle, lapping waves, their bare feet sinking into the warm sand as they dipped them into the cool, inviting water. The ocean, vast and eternal, seemed to mirror the lightness of their spirits, each wave a reminder that life, with all its unexpected twists, could still be savored with joy and a sense of adventure. Months later, Clara prepared a surprise that would once again reveal the depth of her love for Alexander. After a long day at work, she waited nervously at their shared apartment for him to return. Her palms were sweaty as she clutched a small, modestly wrapped package. When Alexander finally stepped through the door, his eyes curious and expectant, Clara's voice trembled with both excitement and apprehension. "I got you something," she said softly as she handed him the package. Alexander unwrapped it with gentle care. Inside lay a t-shirt with a playful inscription on the front, "Dad in Training." For a moment, his expression fell into silence as he processed the gift. Then his eyes welled with tears. Tears of gratitude, surprise, and overwhelming emotion. "Really?" he managed to ask, his voice thick with unshed tears. Clara nodded, her own eyes glistening as the reality of their connection struck her anew. 2 months, she whispered, acknowledging the bittersweet passage of time that had transformed them both. In that moment, Alexander pulled Clara into a tight embrace. He laughed through his tears, a sound mingled with relief and joyful disbelief. "You're not joking," he murmured. "There's a little heartbeat here," he continued, as if discovering a secret that belonged solely to them, a rhythm that was half his, half hers. His words faltered for a moment, leaving him speechless as the profound truth of their union sank in. Gently, he kissed her forehead and then her barely noticeable belly, sealing his declarations with tenderness. "This," he whispered, "is the best gift of my life." Clara, smiling through her tears, teased, "Better than pancakes?" To which Alexander replied with a hearty laugh, "So much better." They lingered there, wrapped in each other's arms as the room around them faded away. In that quiet space, they experienced a love so profound it needed no grand gestures, just the simple, unadorned truth of their commitment. Outside, close friends and family cheered softly, and the world felt momentarily rebalanced by the power of their affection. As the evening unfolded into night, the celebration continued with spirited dancing, joyful toasts, and heartfelt conversations that wove together the tapestry of their shared memories. The laughter was genuine, the music infectious, and every whispered word held the promise of a future rich with hope. Guests marveled not only at the beauty of the couple's union, but also at the sincerity that shone through every detail, from the quirky humor in their vows to the spontaneous moments of vulnerability that had defined their relationship. Later, as the festivities drew to a close and the last guests bid their farewells, Clara and Alexander strolled along the shoreline, their steps slow and unhurried. The gentle breeze carried away any lingering doubts, leaving behind only the enduring certainty that they had found something truly remarkable. In that quiet moment, under a canopy of stars, they made a silent vow to continue embracing life with all its imperfections, and to celebrate every small joy, every unexpected twist, as a testament to the love they shared. The final pages of their journey, written in laughter, tears, and shared glances, had come together to form a story that was as simple as it was extraordinary. A story of love that had blossomed amidst the chaos and found its way into the hearts of all who witnessed it. The wedding, the reception, the surprise gift, and the quiet moments of reflection had all paved the way for a life where every day was an opportunity to laugh at the past, embrace the present, and dream about the future. And that was the story of Clara and Alexander. Two people from seemingly different worlds, brought together by fate, bound by resilience, and wrapped in a love that grew through every misstep, every awkward moment, and every shared glance. From a car window reflection, a piece of lettuce, and a broken heel, to a wedding on the beach and the promise of new life, Clara's journey reminds us that sometimes the most unexpected moments lead us to the most beautiful chapters of our lives. This isn't just a story about office romance. It's about how kindness, honesty, and a little humor can light the darkest days, and how love, real, lasting love, often shows up not in perfection but in presence. Now it's your turn. Do you believe in fate? Have you ever had a Clara moment in your life? A twist that seemed like a disaster but turned into a blessing? Share your story in the comments. We'd truly love to hear it. If this story touched you, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another video. Thank you so much for watching and for believing in love with us.